Okay, so in the previous slides, we looked at what's digital forensic. We looked at what we're going to be covering in the course. We also looked at some tools that we're going to be using for our hands-on sessions for us to be able to do actual forensics on either files, on websites, on tools, on images, and the rest. Okay, now at the very first module, which is an introduction to understanding computer forensics, because you need to understand what the process is like. Learning digital forensics. Now, you want to learn how do you prepare for forensics. We're going to be looking at what are the rules of software and hardware write blockers we use in protecting evidence. Then we're going to see how do we, when you talk about write blockers, you're trying to say, how do I pick up a hard disk or pick up a memory drive and ensure that between the time that I pick up that particular drive and the time I'm going to be presenting it as evidence, nothing is written to it. In terms of there is no writing, there is no, yes, you could read to it, but no additional writing is being done to that particular drive. So that's what you call write blockers. So there are softwares, there are hardwares to ensure that, because imagine you have a file, you have a document, ABC is written on it, ABC is written on it, and you want to present it as an evidence, you must ensure that the same way you picked up that document, ABC, is the same way you're going to be presenting it in court, or you're going to use to establish the fact. Now, we're going to be using some hashing tools like MD5, even some web tools you could use to validate evidence. Take, for instance, there are hashing tools online, maybe MD5, SHA, and different types of algorithms you could use. If you pick up a file, you could get the hash value. We'll go to all of these things in our hands-on. Get the hash value, then after some time, you want to check up to see if it's still that same hash value. So that will maintain integrity. Don't forget, there are about 5 elements of information security. There are 5 things that you need to have in your system to ensure that you have information security. One of it is confidentiality, integrity, availability, non-repudiation, and authenticity. Now, integrity, it's one of them, and that is what the write blockers, that is the reason why you want to have write blockers. So integrity has to do with you making sure that there is no tampering, there is no adjustment, there's no pilfering, there's no change in that particular evidence that you're gathering. Then we're going to be using some open source computer suite called Autopsy. Then we're going to do some demonstrations, especially on our Windows system, then of course on our Linux operating systems. Then one of the things that you need to know, you need to have an idea about CompTIA A+, or this is equivalent to Cisco ITE. Then if you don't have a Linux computer available, you can always virtualize. I'm going to be using VMware, Oracle VirtualBox on the VMware. Then we'll be using Windows, we'll be using Linux commands as well. So we're going to be using Linux and some Windows commands to perform quite a few things, especially formatting digs, using CD, piping, grep, and the others. So these are some basic things you should know. You should have basic computing skills to be able to do digital forensics. Again, if you're unfamiliar with using the command line interface, you should still be able to follow with some of the concepts. Like this is just sudo fdix for this particular drive. So this is a drive on an Ubuntu. you could get into this particular disk. You have 20 gig here, the number of sectors. So your sudo command is you want to be able to, because there's some commands. This is a command fdix. There's some commands you won't be able to do if you're not signing in as an administrator. On the Windows equivalent, is you on your command CMD, right click, and you say start your CMD as an administrator. So we're going to be doing all of this stuff. Then Hex Workshop, we're going to be using Hex Workshop basically still for integrity purpose. The FTK Imager is an acquisition tool. When you say acquisition, is that you're saying that you want to use that particular software to get an image or to do hashing of a particular file. And of course, we're going to be using the DCFLDD. It's for acquisition also. The volatility, just like the name says, is for live acquisition. Remember when I talked about manual analysis, static and dynamic. Dynamic is also termed a live acquisition. Then we're going to be using OpenStego, is an steganography tool. We can use OpenStego. We can also use QuickStego. Okay. Now, before we get into using tools, using some of these techniques to carry out forensic, we need to understand what is the goal of digital forensic. Now, to achieve this, there are 4 objectives. The first objective is to prepare for an investigation, because before you start carrying out the investigation, before you start carrying that out, you need to ensure that you want to prepare for the investigation. Because once integrity is being out of your system, then you cannot actually use your evidence in court. You can actually submit your evidence to your C-level executives. So you want to make sure that you prepare for the investigation. We're going to talk about that. Then the next thing, you want to acquire your data. You want to, is in the flash drive, is in the website, is in a hard disk, is it in a system? You want to acquire that data. Then the next thing, you want to analyze it to find an incriminating piece of evidence. Then the last thing, you want to be able to identify the evidence and present it in the form of a written report. So later on in the course, we're going to say, how do we write reports? I'm going to show you some templates, what and what should be contained in that report. Okay, these are the 4 major goals or 4 major objectives or things that you need to do if actually you want to conduct forensics. Now, this is